Welcome to the regular Faroese News Report.
All right, here's what's on the report today. We've got a roundup of recent events, a look at the government finances and policy, a debate over tourist safety, and finally, a controversy surrounding some Mideast commentary.
So, first up in the news, 2 foreign workers have been sent back to Denmark. They'd come here to work for a Danish employer, but it turns out their work and residency permits weren't valid for the Faroes. So, they were put on the next flight out.
Next, a mystery is unfolding as a search continues for 2 sisters from South Korea. They've disappeared near Trelanipan. The police are now looking into the possibility that they may have vanished intentionally, especially since it's come to light they were traveling on one-way tickets.
And now for some industry news that's definitely making waves. Russia has, on its own, decided to change the fishing regulations in the Barents Sea. They've dropped the minimum catch size for cod and also reduced the required trawl mesh size. On top of all that, they're also threatening to ban Norwegian vessels from their waters.
Okay, so that's the news roundup. Now let's shift gears and look at some of the opinion pieces and recent commentary, starting with government finances and policy.
All right, so in a recent opinion piece, Finn Brekkenstein has some pretty sharp criticism for the government's budgeting. He's arguing that they're running a deficit, and he points to a few key reasons: cutting stable revenue sources, not getting a handle on rising operational costs, using what he calls unrealistic income projections from fishing, and generally just pursuing a policy that's too expansionary.
And Brexton really singles out the new reform committee for criticism. I mean, he doesn't pull any punches, calling it a political flop and political comedy at its best. Basically, he sees it as a way to just kick the can down the road on making tough decisions.
And it seems he's not alone in questioning government spending. In a letter to the editor, Stingram Abrahamsson brings up the sheer size of the government, and he makes a pretty stark comparison to get his point across. Think about this. The Faroe Islands, with about 55,000 people, has 9 government ministries. Switzerland, with nearly 9 million people, has only 7.
But Abrahamsson doesn't stop there. He also points a finger at a few other things he sees as major issues. He's talking about the lack of accountability when big public projects go way over budget, the high salaries and pensions for officials, the millions spent on overseas representative offices, and these huge severance packages for CEOs of state-owned companies.
Speaking of costs, that brings us to a new climate law that's being proposed. MP Elsebeth Mercedes Gunlig's daughter has submitted a formal inquiry because she's concerned about the economic impact. She's asking, is this going to raise costs for households, and will it stand in the way of any future oil exploration? So a lot of questions there.
Okay, let's move on to our next topic, the tourist safety debate. Those missing tourists we talked about at the top of the report, well, that situation has really sparked a much bigger conversation about safety in the mountains. And you can see why, right? It's prompting calls for some stricter measures.
So, in response to all of this, Samal Blahamar has put a proposal on the table. He's arguing for something pretty specific: mandatory guides for any high-risk tours. He sees it as a win-win. First, it's about increasing safety, maybe even saving lives. But second, he thinks it would be great for the local economy, creating new jobs and income for the communities.
All right, for our final section, we're going to look at a really contentious debate that's been playing out in opinion pieces. This one is about the commentary surrounding the events in the Middle East, and it's clear there are some very strong, very different views on the matter. So, here's how it started. An article by Ellen Hendrickson put forward the idea that Israel's government might have needed the October 7th attack to happen, as a pretext for striking Gaza. Well, that drew a really strong response from MP Shooter Skale. He called that theory sick and untrue and pointed to the attacker's own GoPro footage as showing, in his words, bloodthirsty sadism.
Then, a third person, Eivind Jacobsen, weighed in on this. His take is a bit different. He's saying that until there's a full investigation of absolutely everything, you can't really call Eivind or anyone else wrong for believing this is the truth. He points to things like the warnings Israel supposedly received beforehand and what's been described as a slow military response as reasons why people have questions. Like and subscribe to PalsFundamentals for more content like this. Sources link below.